The giant doors of the galactic hall moved slowly with a deep sound that echoed across the room as every eye turned to see the humans walk in cold. Air followed them like a shadow, and their boots clicked against the smooth floor made from silver. Stone from a dead moon, no one smiled, no one clapped instead. Claws twitched in some hands, reached toward hidden weapons under robes and armor. One alien leaned to another and whispered something sharp and angry, their eyes glowing with fear and hate. The humans kept walking, calm faces, eyes forward, no fear in their steps, even though they were not invited and not wanted in this place. The hall was shaped like a circle, wide and high, with banners from 100 worlds hanging from the ceiling. The center had a round stage made of black glass, where leaders from across the stars sat in high chairs floating in the air like thrones. A voice broke the silence, cold and loud. It came from a blue-skinned alien with 6 eyes and metal horns. Said, "What are you doing here? You were told to stay away. Your kind brings disease. Your kind brings war. You will leave now or face the law of the Union." The human in front, a tall man with gray hair and a voice like quiet thunder, stopped and looked. Around the room, he said, "We came because you were dying. We came because we heard your call. Even if you tried to hide it, we came to help." Hall laughed, not all, but many sharp, cruel laughter, bounced off the walls. Like knives, some aliens shouted. "You lie," others said. "Humans only help themselves." Others said, "Humans bring death," and then asked for thanks. One alien threw a drink at the humans, but missed. The cup shattered on the floor, and no one stopped him. The gray-haired man did not move. His voice stayed calm. He said, "Your people are sick. Your colonies are falling one by one. The fever spreads fast, and your own doctors are leaving them to die. We have seen the messages. We know you are afraid, but we are not here to hurt you. We are here to save lives." A woman with silver wings and a voice like fire rose from her floating seat. She said, "Why should we trust you after what your kind did to the moon of Valor, after what you did to the skies of Rether? Your hands are soaked in the blood of our young." The man looked at her and said, "We remember being left to die too. We remember the silence when Earth cried for help and none of you answered. We remember the screams when the skies burned and the stars turned away. We know what it feels like to be forgotten. We know what it means to be alone, and still we came." A long silence followed. No one moved. No one breathed. The hall felt frozen in time. Then a small voice came from the back of the room, a child alien with golden skin and large round eyes. He said, "My sister is sick. The doctors say she will not last another day, but they do nothing. They say it is not safe. They say they will not risk it." He looked at the humans and said, "Will you help her?" The gray-haired man knelt and said, "Yes, we will help her. We will help anyone who needs us." The child ran to his father, a tall alien with hard eyes. The father stood thinking, then slowly he said, "If they lie, they die by my hand, but if they tell the truth, then we owe them more than thanks more." Voices joined, some still angry, some confused, some curious. A leader with no mouth but glowing skin said, "I lost 3 colonies last week. My people begged me to do something, and I have nothing left to give. Maybe it is time to listen." The humans were given 1 hour to explain. They showed images from hidden channels, proof of the spreading sickness, maps of falling worlds, and faces of children crying for help. They told of their team, ready to move supplies, ready to launch, and doctors trained to enter zones no one else dared go. They asked for no money, no reward, only trust. When the hour ended, the leaders looked at one another, quiet and unsure. The 6-eyed alien with metal horns stood again. He said, "I still do not trust you, but the plague spreads fast, and my world is next. If you can save them, you may enter. If you fail, do not return." Humans bowed and turned to leave behind them. The hall buzzed with whispers and doubt, but also with something new, something strange and sharp, like the edge of hope. As the doors closed behind the humans, one alien leaned to another and said, "Maybe they are not like the stories. Maybe they are even worse, or maybe, just maybe, they are better." And outside the hall, on the edge of space, a human ship waited, engines glowing, ready to jump into the fire without asking for anything but the chance to do what no one else would save. A life, even if it cost their own asterisk. The alien colony hung in space like a dying ember, its lights dim and flickering, its air systems weak and choking the planet below, once green, now covered in yellow storms, carried dust and sickness into every street. The skies were full of cries for help, but no one came, not even their own ships. The Union had sealed the area off, marked it red on every map, danger, no entry, highly infected inside. The main dome people lay in rows on the floor, coughing, shaking eyes wide with fear, children held. Their parents and begged them to stay awake. Doctors in silver suits stood behind. Glass afraid to go in, afraid to touch, afraid to die. The food was gone. The water was thick and warm machines hummed but gave no answers. All they said was time running out then. A sound filled the sky, a low hum, not from the colony, not from the Union, but from a ship new and unfamiliar, shaped like a blade of light. The humans had come. Union command shouted across the systems. They said, "Turn back, you are not cleared, you will be fired upon." But the human captain gave no answer, his eyes locked on the screens ahead, his crew silent around him, each one ready, each one knowing what waited below, each one already prepared to die if needed. They entered the dead zone. Engines, slow shields, raised alarms, blinking red around them, the planet's sickness tried to reach them, but the human ship pushed forward, not with weapons, but with care bays full of medicine and food drones, ready to scan and heal, suits made for deadly air and hands trained for mercy, not war. The moment they landed, silence fell. Across the colony, eyes turned to the landing pad. Children ran to the windows. Guards stepped forward, unsure, afraid, but curious. Then the door opened, and the humans stepped out, not with guns, not with shields, just with small packs and masks and calm voices. "We came to help," said the captain, his voice clear through the speakers. No one answered at first. Then an old alien stepped forward, his breathing rough, his arm shaking. He asked, Why would you come here? No one else did, not even our own." Captain looked at him and said, "Because we could not sleep, knowing you were dying, because we remember what it was like to call for help and hear nothing but silence." The old alien fell to his knees and began to cry. Human team split into groups. One for the water lines, one for food, one for medicine. They moved fast, their steps careful, but sure. They helped the sick one, by one using strange machines that hummed with warmth, their faces always calm, even when the disease showed its worst form. Some humans fell, coughing blood into their masks, but still they worked. One young doctor stayed by a child who could not move her eyes, barely open her skin, turning gray. He gave her water, stayed by her side, sang her songs from earth, and when her breathing stopped, he wept, but kept holding her hand because no one should leave this world alone. On the third day, the fever changed. It grew stronger. The air turned heavy. Something new was spreading faster than before. The Union sent a warning. The planet was now beyond saving. Anyone left would die soon. They advised immediate exit and to burn the place from orbit. The humans refused. They sent a message instead. "We stay until the last breath. We will not leave while there is still one life too." Save the Union did not reply inside the colony. More humans got sick one by one. They felt their eyes burning, their strength fading, but still they kept going, even when their legs could not hold them, even when their hands shook too much to hold a tool. They gave their food to the young, their suits to the nurses. They smiled through pain and said, "It will be all right." Outside the dome, another storm rose, a great wall of dust and lightning moving fast. The colony braced for it, weak walls shaking. But the human engineers had seen it coming. They had sealed cracks, reinforced windows, helped power return just in time, and when the storm hit, the dome held for the first time in weeks. The people inside were safe. The children began to laugh again, even if only for a moment, and in that sound something changed. The people no longer looked at the humans with fear. They looked with something else, something quiet and deep, something close to love. On the fifth night, a message reached the stars, sent by a child, her hand still trembling. She said, "Thank you for saving my brother. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for not leaving us to die." The message spread across the network, small at first, then louder and louder, until even the Union could not block it. It reached every planet, every system, every race. Some cheered, some cried, some grew angry and said it was a trick, but many began to wonder if the stories were wrong, if humans were more than monsters, if they were something else, something rare, something brave. But deep inside the colony, the sickness was still growing, and the humans were growing weaker one by one. Their lights dimmed, yet none asked to leave, none begged for escape. They only asked for more time to save just one more life, even if it cost them all. The Galactic Union Senate was in full session. Lights, bright walls, pulsing with soft color. Thousands of voices argued over each other, some yelling for punishment, some calling for silence. The chamber was split, torn between fear and pride, between shame and doubt. They had received the message from the infected colony. The one showing human hands saving alien lives? The one showing humans coughing and bleeding and still helping the message was clear, but many said it was fake, edited, created. For sympathy, others said it was dangerous, too dangerous to believe in. Old senator with 3 arms and no eyes slammed his fist on the table. He shouted, "We cannot trust them. It is a trap. They always lie. They always twist the story we warn them. To stay out, they broke the law. They must be punished." Others nodded. Some hissed. Some pounded the tables. The Speaker of the Senate stood tall with feathers that changed color by the second. She said the humans acted without permission. They entered. A no-go zone, they violated union orders, but before she could finish, the chamber doors opened with a loud hiss, and everyone turned a small group entered, guarded by union security. They looked tired. Some were injured, their skin marked by the plague. They had come from the colony, not humans, but alien children, rescued and carried out by the human team when the dome was stabilized. Their faces were pale, their bodies thin, but their eyes were strong and full of something no one in the room expected one. Of them, a girl with soft green skin stepped forward. She held a broken mask in her hand. It was too large for her face. "It had belonged to a human doctor," she said. In a shaking voice, "He gave me this when I could not breathe anymore. He gave me his air and told me to live." Another child stepped forward, his arms wrapped in cloth, one eye swollen. He said, "I watched them carry my mother. They cried when she died. They buried her. With flowers they made from scrap, they sang a song in a language I did not understand, but it made the night feel warm." The chamber fell silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The old senator, who had yelled before, now leaned back. Slowly, as if the words had taken all the strength from his body, the children kept talking. One by one, stories pouring out like water, stories of humans who shared their food, who sat beside the sick, who smiled even when they were too weak to stand, stories of humans who died with dignity, who never asked for reward, who only said, "We are here for you." A boy no older than 5 held a drawing in his hand. It showed him holding hands with a human with stars above them and fire behind. He said, "He told me to run, and I ran, and then the roof fell, but he stayed." He smiled at me and said, "Go now." And I did. One of the security guards began to cry, wiping tears without a word. Others looked away, trying to hide the storm inside their hearts, but the children did not stop. Their words were like flames burning through lies, through fear, through the thick wall of hate built over many years. The speaker asked, "Why did they come? Why would humans help us when we never helped them?" A child answered, "Because they said no one else would, because they said they remembered what it felt like to scream in the dark and be alone." A ripple moved through the Senate, like a wave crashing against stone. The senators looked at each other, unsure, shaken. Some stood and walked out, heads low. Others removed their badges, placing them on the table in silence. One stood and said, "I watched the message. I did not believe it, but now I have heard the truth and I cannot close my ears." The broadcast was live across 1,000 systems, millions, watching, some cheering, some crying, some refusing to believe, but the story kept spreading, carried by the voices of the young, by those who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. On a quiet moon, a mother held her child tighter. On a distant station, a guard played the video again and again. On a warship near the edge of space, a soldier painted a small human figure on his armor, right beside his own flag. The Union called an emergency council, now forced to face what they had ignored. The humans were still inside. The red zone still helping, still dying, but now the galaxy was watching, and the story could not be erased. Children were given shelter, and care doctors treated them carefully. As if touching something holy, they were offered gifts, protection, new homes, but all they asked for was to see the stars again, and maybe one day to visit Earth and deep in the stars. The human ship still glowed faint and small, surrounded by sickness and storm, but inside it burned with something no one had expected. Not power, not pride, not hate, only hope. Hope carried on tired shoulders and bleeding hands. Hope whispered by children who had once been left to die, but now lived because strangers chose to care, because humans chose to stay, because someone finally said, "Your life matters even if it costs my own." And for the first time in many years, the galaxy began to listen. Asterisk. The sky above the Union Station was dark, and heavy metal clouds rolling across stars that used to shine, so bright now, hidden behind silence and secrets inside the main chamber. The humans returned, faces tired, bodies marked by sickness, but heads held high. They had come back with proof. They had come back with survivors. They had come back with truth. But The welcome was not what they had expected. No open arms, no cheers, no thanks, just armed guards, cold eyes, and orders to stand down to drop. Their tools to place their hands behind their backs. The human leader hesitated for only a second before doing as asked. His team followed. Each movement slow and careful, but confused, unsure why hands that once gave medicine now shook with cuffs. And Fear, the Speaker of the Union, stood on the platform. Her voice echoed across the walls. She said the humans stand accused of entering a forbidden zone, of spreading dangerous technology, altering alien DNA without permission, of breaking interstellar law and risking all life in the quadrant. The crowd gasped, not in shock, but in practiced outrage. They had rehearsed this anger. They had waited for this moment. The captain looked around, his voice calm. He said, "We saved them. We gave everything to protect them, even when you turned away, even when you left them to die." A general with golden armor stepped forward, sharp voice full of venom. He said, "We have reports that the sickness mutated after you arrived, that your medicine changed the infection, that your tools made it worse, and that this was always your plan to weaken us from inside." The human doctor stepped up her hands. Still shaking from fever, she said, "The sickness changed because time passed, not because of us. We recorded everything. We can prove it, but no one wanted proof. No one listened. No one watched the data screens or checked the logs. Instead, the soldiers moved in, chains clinked, and weapons hummed, and just like that, the ones who had given everything were made into criminal sin." A small room away from the cameras, the human team sat inside cold walls, staring at nothing, the silence between them heavier than gravity. One whispered, "I thought we did the right thing." Another said, "Maybe we did, but maybe that is not enough, and this galaxy maybe right means nothing here." Outside, news channels spun their stories. Humans bring plague, humans disobey, humans break peace. And the people watched. Some believed, some questioned. But most just turned away, too tired to care, too scared to speak. But one young alien officer named Kale watched with burning eyes. He had been at the colony. He had seen the truth. He had seen humans carry children through fire and rain. He had buried one of them himself, a girl who gave him her mask before dying. He had held her hand until her heart stopped, and he remembered her last words. "Tell them we tried, tell them we cared." Kale could not sleep. He could not stay quiet. He walked into the record room and pulled the logs himself, reviewed the footage, unlocked the hidden files, heard the last messages from the human team before their arrest files that were marked confidential files that were meant to disappear. In those files, he saw all humans refusing to leave, humans saving strangers, humans giving their lives for others, and then being betrayed by the very hands they came to help. Kale knew what he had to do, but the price would be high. His rank, his name, maybe even his life. He found a guard who owed him a favor. He slipped into the holding cells, past scanners and eyes and doors made of steel. He reached the captain, who looked up without surprise, as if he already knew. "Someone would come," Kale said. "I saw what you did. I saw what they did, and I want to help, but we must move fast. They're sending you to the cold planets, the dead zones where no one comes back. They call it relocation, but it is execution." The humans did not beg. They did not panic. They just stood ready, calm eyes, steady hearts. They followed Kale through the back halls, through tunnels built before most races had even met. The escape was not easy. Alarms blared, guards shouted. Kale took a blast to the shoulder, but still moved forward, pulling the humans with him, pushing them toward freedom. They made it to a stolen ship, old and rusted, but still breathing. The engines roared, and the stars opened their arms wide. The humans were free, but far from safe, hunted. Now marked forever as enemies of the Union. Kale stayed behind, his wound bleeding, but his mind sharp. He would speak when the time was right. He would bring the proof when the ears were ready. And until then, he would wait and watch and protect the truth. And somewhere far away on a lonely moon, the children who had been saved lit candles. For the ones who had vanished, they held hands and whispered names and told stories of kindness and pain and courage in the face of fire. And they'd promised to remember, no matter what the galaxy said, no matter how loud the lies became, they would remember, who stayed when no one else would, who gave their lives without asking for anything. The humans who came not to conquer, but to care, who walked into the dark without fear and left behind only light. The stolen ship drifted through silent space engines, barely holding power lights flickering as the human crew worked in silence. Each second heavy with risk alarms, whispered warnings, fuel low oxygen, falling trackers still chasing them, but no one complained, no one slowed down, every hand moved with purpose, every face showed one thing only focused, they had escaped the Union. But not their duty because another world was now crying for help, a small colony on the edge of the infected zone reports. Said the sickness had returned stronger, faster, deadlier, and no one would go, not again, not after what happened at the last place, not after what happened to the humans who stayed behind, but those same humans were now heading straight toward it with no backup, no command, no permission, just one reason they had seen the message from a child, her voice shaking, her words simple. My brother is dying. Please, someone help us. And that was all it took inside. The air was thin and warm, the medical. Supplies were limited, the suits were patched with wires, and hope the crew barely rested, some still coughing, others wrapped in bandages, but their eyes never wavered, their mission was clear. Not one of them asked, should we go? Not one said maybe. We cannot make it, they all said the same thing, we go now. Kale had sent one last encrypted signal before they parted. He said, the Union has blamed you again, they say the new outbreak is your fault, but I have proof I will send it. What am I going to hold? And do not let them silence you again. The human captain read those words and nodded once, then turned back to the controls. His hands steady as they neared the infected world. The sky around the planet was red with dust storm signals from the surface. Were weak, broken voices, cries lost in static. The sickness was winning again. They landed just outside the main dome, cracked and barely standing. The colony was almost gone. Most had already fallen, the few who remained were hiding in the lower chambers. Afraid, starving, abandoned, even the local guards had fled. Only one old engineer stayed behind, trying to keep the air systems running. And he wept when he saw the humans arrive. You came, he said through tears, you really came. The human doctor stepped forward, her suit stained her steps. Slow, she said, we'd leave people to die, not today, not ever. And then the work began. Teams split into small groups. Some cleared the vents, some repaired the generators, some carried the weak to safer places. Every action cost strength. Every breath burned their lungs, but they kept going even as the sickness reached them, even as their bodies grew heavy and slow. They kept going. One man gave his mask to a child, then collapsed minutes later. A woman stayed behind to hold the hand of a mother who had no one left. She never got back up. Another dragged 3 people to safety, then fell to his knees and whispered, I have more to give, and then stood again. Dome's lower level was the most dangerous. The infection thick, the air hot with death, but inside were the youngest, the babies too weak to move, too small, to know fear, trapped and forgotten. The humans knew what it meant. Going in was a choice without return, but 5 of them suited up anyway. And entered without a word. They found the children in a corner, hidden beneath old blankets, crying too soft to hear above the noise, and one by one the humans carried them out, passing them hand to hand up the stairs, through the dark, through the heat, through the pain. And when the last child was lifted to safety, the floor cracked, a fire sparked, and the supports groaned. The team inside had only seconds. The exit was blocked. The only way to stop the collapse was to seal the emergency doors. From within one of them, a young pilot, barely more than a boy, smiled and said, tell them we finished the job, and pressed the control. The doors closed, the fire burned, and silence followed. Above ground, the rest of the team stood holding the saved children. Some crying, some silent, some holding each other as the dome shook one last time. And then, when still later, as the fires cooled, the colony survivors built a small memorial from broken parts and stone. They placed it near the landing site, carved with names and words that read, they gave us life when all we had was death far above. Kale received a signal too late. The data files came through his hands, shaking as he watched the final recordings, the voices of the humans clear and full of peace, saying, we do this because no one else will, saying, we go because it is right. He sent the files across the stars, this time not hidden, not quiet. He sent them to news stations, rebel signals, pirate broadcasts, every corner of the galaxy, and said, let them all see the truth. And the truth spread like wildfire, not just the files, not just the images, but the story, the feeling. The sacrifice that could not be denied anymore, even by the coldest heart. And somewhere deep in space, a child held a blanket, a gift from a dying human, and whispered thank you into the stars, where maybe, just maybe, someone still listened. Asterisk. Darkness covered the stars. as the Union sat quiet behind walls of steel, pretending not to see, not to hear, not to feel. The truth pulsing through every screen, every signal, every whisper across the galaxy. But the silence did not last because one voice rose above it, louder, stronger, and impossible to ignore. The broadcast began without warning. Screens blinked on. Homes on ships, in meeting halls and mining stations, across thousands of worlds, every device forced to display one thing: a human doctor sitting alone, blood on her face. Her breath slow, her eyes tired but filled with fire behind her. The wall cracked, and sparks danced in the air. The sound of coughing echoed from behind the camera. She spoke slowly, carefully, with each word shaking the hearts of all who listened. She said, "We are dying, that is the truth, but we are not running. We are not hiding. We are staying because there are people here who still need help, people who were left by their own leaders, people who still believe someone will come." Her voice trembled, but her eyes stayed strong. She said, "We do not ask for your pity. We do not want medals. We do not need your trust. We came because it was right, because we could not look away, because we remember what it means to be abandoned." She turned slightly, coughing hard into her hand, and continued, her voice raw but full of strength. She said, "If we die saving lives. Can your leaders say the same?" The feed flickered for a moment, then cut to images shaky and real humans. Lifting children from fire, carrying wounded across crumbling ground, giving water to aliens twice there. Sighs using their last energy to shield the weak from falling debris, each frame full of pain and courage. Then it returned to the doctor, her eyes wet but unbroken. She whispered, "Tell them. We tried, tell them we stayed," and then the screen went black for several seconds. Nothing moved across the galaxy. No sound, no word, no movement. Just stillness, like the stars themselves were holding their breath. And then the voices came on. A factory moon workers stopped their machines and stared in silence. One whispered, "They stayed for us on a distant trade ship." A merchant closed his eyes and said, "I saw her once. She gave me medicine and asked for nothing on a battlefield where soldiers guarded." A useless boarder, a young trooper, removed his helmet and dropped his weapon without a word. Every planet, every station, every port felt it, the weight of that message, the truth inside it. The honesty that cut deeper than any blade, the sacrifice that no lie could cover anymore. In the Union halls, the leaders shouted orders, blocked the signal, shut it down, erase it from the systems. But it was too late. Pirate channels, rebel networks, even children with hacked tablets had copied it and spread it, and nothing could stop it. Now the people saw, and the people remembered, and the people began to speak. Small groups at first, then thousands, then millions, aliens of every kind holding signs, lighting candles, painting the faces of human heroes on walls and clothes and ships, demanding answers, shouting names, screaming for justice. And when Union guards pushed them, they did not run, they stood. When Union voices called it false, they played the broadcast again. When the Union said humans were criminals, they shouted back, "No, they are heroes in hidden places." Brave reporters released more files, medical logs, voice messages, personal notes, all showing what the humans had done, how they had lived, how they had died, how they never stopped helping, even when they were starving, even when they were sick, even when they were alone. The Union tried to spin a new story, calling the humans dangerous, calling the protests a threat. But no one listened, because the people had already seen the truth, and truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Across the star statues of human figures began to rise, some built from scrap metal, some carved from stone, each one placed by the hands of those who once feared them, hands that now reached to honor the memory of those who gave everything on one world. A child stood by, a statue with a flower in her hand. She said, "They came for us when no one else did, and I will never forget." And the crowd behind her said, "We will never forget." And on a far edge of the galaxy, a ship painted with the symbol of hope lit its engines, ready to carry supplies to a new infected zone, crewed by aliens trained by human medics, wearing patches that read, "We stay." The fire of that message burned through the void, not with hate, not with anger, but with something deeper, something rare, something powerful. Truth, and truth once spoken cannot be silenced, not by walls, not by guns, not by fear, because truth lives on in the hearts of those who choose to remember, who choose to carry it forward, who choose to say enough. And from that moment forward, the galaxy was never the same again. The sky over the memory field was clear, and still stars shining above like silent witnesses to all that had happened. 1,000 voices filled the air, soft and respectful as creatures from every Part of the galaxy gathered around the monument, made not by humans but by the very ones who once feared them, each stone carved by different hands, each line written in languages that once called humans monsters. The monument stood tall in the center of the field, shaped like an open hand reaching toward the sky, surrounded by smaller stones, each one marked with a name. A moment, a sacrifice. These were not statues of warriors with weapons, but of healers, protectors, and ordinary men and women who gave everything without asking for anything. In return, a small child stood near the front, holding a glowing flower, her eyes wide as she looked up at the tall figure carved in black stone. A human doctor with one hand outstretched, her other arm carrying an alien child wrapped in a cloth hair. Face calm, her body scarred, her eyes full of light. The speaker of the ceremony, a gray-scaled elder from a world once closed to all outsiders, spoke into the wind, his voice steady. He said, "Once we were told humans could not be trusted, once we believed. They'd brought only fire and fear, once we turned away when they needed us most, and yet when we cried out, they came. When we were silent, they still listened. When we gave them nothing, they gave us everything." The crowd was quiet. No arguments, no denial. Only truth shared without shame, without pride. Just pain and healing and remembrance. In the front row sat the survivors from the colonies. Those who had been saved, those who had seen the humans with their own eyes, their hands resting on their hearts. Tears on their faces, not from sadness, but from something deeper, something harder to describe. Something born from watching someone else give their life for yours. Behind them stood new volunteers, humans and aliens, side by side, wearing patches that read United Care Corps, ready to go where others would not train to serve, ready to follow the path left by those who had shown what it truly meant to care, what it truly meant to stay. News drones floated above, recording every second. But this time, there was no need for spin, no twist to the story, no lies left to tell. The galaxy already knew the truth, not because of the files, not because of the speeches, but because of the feeling left behind. Something that grew stronger every time someone said their names out loud, every time someone whispered they mattered on a quiet world far away. Kale watched the broadcast alone in a small room surrounded by the medals. He never accepted the files, he never deleted the memories, he never forgot. He placed one hand on the screen as the statue appeared and whispered the name of the captain, the name of the medic, the name of the young pilot who sealed the doors and never came back. He whispered, "Thank you." In that same moment on a different moon, the same names were being carved into stone by a team of alien children, led by one who had once been carried out of the fire. Her voice now strong, her hands steady as she taught others what the humans had taught her: kindness, patience, courage, and hope. The Union leaders who once shouted for punishment now sat in silence. Many had resigned, others stood trial, their power broken, their lives shattered by the weight of actions that needed no defense, needed no explanation, only witness ships across. The stars now carried medical banners marked with the same symbol drawn by a child, a hand and a heart wrapped together. Seen now as a sign of safety, a promise that someone was coming, someone who would stay, someone who would care. And in the heart of the old Union station, the largest screen of all, lit up with a message that played every hour, a simple voice. A recording of the human doctor from her last transmission, her words soft but unbreakable. "If we die saving lives. Can your leaders say the same?" No music, no flashing lights, no fancy design, just words and silence, and a galaxy that no longer looked away. The girl at the monument stepped forward, placed the glowing flower at the base, and whispered, "You saved us, and we remember." And behind her 1,000 voices echoed, "We remember." And above them all the stars burned on, quiet and endless, shining on a new galaxy. Shaped not by power or fear or control, but by one simple human act: the choice to help, the choice to save, the choice to give everything, even when the world gave nothing back. And in that moment, in the heart of that silence, the galaxy finally understood what it truly meant to be human.